Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinnerack. We also have
Calvin Ellis, ready to rock.
the Thunderbolts more recently have been rebranded as the New Avengers. It's been out for a while, and what are your thoughts?
It's more like the new Avengers were rebranded with the Thunderbolts.
No, but now if you go to the theaters, they're just titled the new Avengers.
For those of you who may not be privy to this information, the new Avengers were actually, that's right, the new Avengers. This is one of the gifts that we received from Brian Michael Bendis during his tenure at Marvel Comics. So, and this was during a period where like a lot of the titles started having these, what's the right way to put it? They started putting like a multiplicity of adjectives in terms of the titles, and a lot of them were borrowed from other titles. So you got titles like the New Avengers, which was supposed to be a take on like the new X-Men, and then you would get the Uncanny Avengers. Okay, then you would get like the Amazing X-Men. Stuff like that was happening around this period of time. But you got the New Avengers. Okay, fine. And supposedly there was some particular thrust to the team, but it was the Avengers. It was the Avengers. Now we got the new Avengers, and who's on the team? The Thunderbolts. So go figure, right?
Well, these weren't even the real Thunderbolts, so
No, no,
these are
those
the questionable Thunderbolts,
as
not the full villains that they were.
well. I think this is when you have when you have the Winter Soldier and Black Widow on the team, and I believe Black Widow wasn't Yelena Belova in the comic, but that's the third iteration of the Thunderbolts. So in the comics, these were actual Thunderbolts. I agree with you that I would have liked them to go the route, or at the very least initially, that they were villains in disguise as heroes. That would have been, I still think that would have been a great storyline. Unfortunately, they killed off most of the villains and didn't really seek to develop those that they had further than Loki,
They got
who they decided
Zemo.
to devolve into something totally different.
They got Zemo though.
You think that's not Baron Zemo? I'm sorry.
What the Baron Zemo? Well, actually, they upped his fighting skills, and by the time he got to the Thunderbolts, but he was just a good leader early on because he's not even a real Zemo. He was the son of Zemo, so he was a more present day Zemo, and I think by the time he got to the Thunderbolts, he had him, like well trained, equal, almost, I guess, not equal to Captain America, but good in battle type of thing.
He was like most of the guys. Well, Cap's big. Well, Cap had the super soldier serum, and most of the guys that he fought just did not. But they were always putting him through paces because he was having these pagoda-like battles where you had to get through like 100 different Hydra men before you could finally even see Zemo, stuff like that. But the Baron Zemo I was introduced to in the comics was somebody who was a lot more sophisticated and deadly than the Zemo that we saw in the films. And then the next time that I saw Zemo was in the Falcon and Winter Soldier series. And of course, they played it for yucks in certain scenes. So I just didn't feel that he was a credible threat or supervillain. So, and I held out that maybe they would put something together, but they decided in the end, no, we're not going to do that. That's one of the reasons why I still have my Thunderbolts collection up for sale, and nobody's going to buy it.
Yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on the movie?
I actually enjoyed the movie.
Mhm.
This was one kid I know who's a very big Marvel fan came and was like, yeah, you got to see it. Since this is the best one since Endgame. And so I was like, wow, you mean everything else was written poorly? Because this is just, it is good, it is entertaining, but it's also just a solid story at the end of the day. And that's what a lot of the other films were missing. They had too much agenda going on, or they allowed too much license to the director to, evoke a certain feel. or idea, as opposed to, hey, we're going to have a beginning, middle, end, characterization, some setting, you know, definitely sequence of events that are going to be appealing to the viewers, and we're going to stick the landing. This film actually did that. So it was enjoyable from start to finish. I also got a link on the video as well, so I didn't have to go to the theaters.
Okay. With this, I saw this, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago or something like that. And at some point while watching it, I mean, it starts, okay enough, they're actually sent in to take each other out, and they realize that they've been set up. And they go through a bunch of pitfalls to kind of get to the next stage, and then everything else leads to Bob bringing out some other things that we don't know. And then while I was watching it, and it's real odd that that they would kind of go for, I mean, they were creating the Sentry character to kind of have him have the feel of Nuclear Man, and kind of take the Sentry S, but it kind of be twisted. It could be like that terrible end that was on on the Nuclear Man. So it kind of had the feel at portions of having bits of Superman 4 and Superman 3. More Superman 3 because Superman Clark Kent fights Superman. They did, I can give them sort of credit to say that what's the name shouldn't utilize violence to overcome the thing, and I think that was what was kind of odd in the Superman 3 thing, but obviously it was good for Christopher Reeve as an actor. But at the same time, so you're taking these pieces and you're putting them together. So then I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh, this is the psychological. A lot of people go into the psychology of it, and I'm just like, this is the New Mutants. They're just utilizing the Superman 3 and the New Mutants. They're gonna put it into this movie, and we got a backdrop of our story. So it's kind of, I feel like as the industry leader in the superhero and film market, they've done so much. We could have had gone to them just being villains or something, or lead with them being new Avengers. Like go with the branding, go with your story, go with them being the new Avengers, and leads into the next stage. It's hard to believe in, because the hard part is they're playing up the fact that these guys are, the B team, the C team. I would say
Mm.
almost the F team, because when you see them struggling with stuff, the obvious answer is, would Spider-Man struggle with any of the stuff that they were struggling with
They
in
were
the
struggling with themselves.
I'm saying when the stuff is dropping from the thing, and
Who's the big villain? Who's the big villain in the film?
the problem that you always say, that they're fighting themselves, they're fighting
Yeah,
the void.
they're fighting the Sentry.
Yeah, so that's the bigger problem, is that they're fighting them. They don't even have their own villain to fight. Like, Marvel is invested in fighting to the point where we don't even have a villain for these stories. We just have a soul searching psychological thing, which we already did in the New Mutants. But at the same time, that's what I'm saying. You either lead with Black Widow 2, or the better title, which would be the New Avengers. And then you get your blockbuster. Say, oh, these are the New Avengers. These are just whoever's left in this thing. And we got this Avengers team. And of course, utilizing the end credit stuff, they get the name. This is always the plan. So it's like, why not just sell? Why not just sell us that? Why don't you just sell us that stuff? But ultimately, yes, if you watch it on its own, you can definitely say this is a definitely watchable movie. They overcome, they figure out what it is in the end. It's a good twist at the ending. But at the same time, it just really, as far as Marvel, it just seems like I'm not sure who's there and why it always has to be second rate stuff as far as their plotting and storytelling. When if you don't have a story, just go to the comic books. figure something out from there. Not just say, hey,
Why
oh,
would they do that?
hmm?
We already know why they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that because they think, on a very basic level, they think comic books are stupid. What can they get from these comic books that they couldn't do better on their own without ever having read them? They do not believe that these comic books have anything of value for them. They've got to fix the comic book.
Yeah, and that's really the hard part of saying that you have you have the talent that wants to you have these talents that really want to play along, right? And they're putting their best effort in there, and you can see it in the performances. So even if I have my misgivings on the story, I feel like it's recycled stuff. Everyone's putting their best effort for it. And every scene that you see outside of plot wise of just deciding we're going to take out the Taskmaster to show that they're expendable. It's just such a throwaway thing. It's just like it might as well not have been there. But I do think that Marvel has made a mistake in their John Walker. And I understand this is a way more likable John Walker, and they're making and towards the end he got to be a little more of the dunce that we've seen in Captain America. But he was a character that enjoyed himself. He wanted the juice. He was juiced up, and he was like, "Yo, I'm 2 seconds from, to Captain America. I'm 2 seconds from taking you out. All I need to put the pressure on you and you'll be finished." And Cap at the same time in that comic when they first met, when he met him as Super Patriot, like, oh my goodness, this guy, he's got a couple legs up on me. And I'm barely making out of it, but then he also talking tough. And then when he, became Captain America, it was madness and, and kind of and no care, didn't have a care of life. It's life of other people. But we got to the end where Cap wins, and then he sees the Steve Rogers and Captain America facing off of each other, and he does something, and then like the dust goes into the fake Steve Rogers face, and he becomes the skull. And then Cap turns to John Walker and says, "Hey, thanks for helping me." And he's like, "How do you know I wasn't trying to help the other guy?" I was like, "That's the John Walker. They don't be taking nothing. He might be saying something, might be saying the wrong thing, but who cares?" That was the whole hook. Is he was like the Rambo Cap because all the people were writing in saying, "Why can't Cap be like Rambo?" So he gave us a Rambo that at least Rambo had some focus on what he was doing, that sort of thing. But have I've always feel, but having that actor and he wants to be, someone who's struggling with the mantle. The other character didn't struggle with the mantle at all. He was just like, you put me in there, I'm there. I don't care. Oh man, this is tough. I don't care. I'm killing everybody. You kill my friend, that sort of thing. I'm gonna go. I'm upset. So it was definitely definitely a watchable thing. Something probably you watch on Disney Plus and be like, oh yeah, this has some action and that sort of thing, and stuff like that. But we're expecting so much more from Marvel, and they used to do it and used to bring out the hilt. So that's the
We're
kind of
expecting more from this film.
from Marvel in general. We're not getting. I
No,
was
that ship sailed alone. That ship sailed like 2, 3 years ago. My expectations are out the window.
Look. The thing is, this is the crazy part, right? This is the truth to task. There's a doc on the Guardians of the Galaxy, right? And the Guardians of the Galaxy started in the MCU development, right? A female writer who's a sci-fi writer was in the team of people who came in and wanted to do Marvel stuff. So they said, "Hey, you can write whatever you want. We're not locked into using anything that you do, and we may not continue it with you, that sort of thing." So they're like, "Hey, pick any property. Here's all these properties." And she was like, let me do the Guardians of the Galaxy because it's in kind of the vein that I want to do the original characters. and let me try to do something in this thing, which will be its own avenue, and maybe it'll stay alive. And she's like, I want to do that, and I want to do Thanos. And she was writing, developed that for a long time. And then that was the only thing that was continue going. And then Marvel kept looking at it and saying, yeah, can you do this? We got a new set of characters. Can you put that in there? So they put the new set of characters in there. Can we take Rocket Raccoon out? And she's like, no, keep Rocket Raccoon in there. All right, keep Rocket Raccoon. They kept, so it's all this development going on. Then they go into, they, nope. Josh Whedon's like, no, you shouldn't have this character for Thanos for the Guardians of the Galaxy. We need to use somebody else because it's going to be Avengers villain. So they take Thanos out, they put Ronan and Nathan, but he'll be like a side character. Then you had James Gunn comes in there and he says, "Oh, I had to rewrite the whole thing, but all the key pieces were still there. The character connected the music, um, a bunch of stuff that was in there, and so saying all that was developed into getting us a three-part series of that of someone who took the thing, did everything Marvel asked, and we got three movies out of it, right? And not sticking to the subject matter exactly as is. So you can make changes, you can develop it, but it's like we're not getting that with this stuff. We're getting okay watchable movies that you'll be like, yeah, and then you won't watch it again. For most people that are not in the comic know, I'm like saying, hey, Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man is something I will watch again. A lot of regular people are like, Ant-Man is something I won't watch again. It's just like, yo, that wasn't that in the good Marvel? I was like, no, I'm not watching Ant-Man. Like, we're not doing it. I was like, why is everyone so? The first one was good, and they're like, nah, we're not. I'm not doing Ant-Man. It's just like,
Ant-Man once. I didn't watch it again.
but the thing is that I think that it's going down worse. And the thing is, as having it storytelling by committee is not really working. So what is this? What is the phase going to turn into? Is this phase going to turn into something good as we get to the next stage or whatever else is left to happen? I'm not even sure what's going on next, but obviously the Avengers are coming back somehow, and the Vision story is getting nuts too because they're like we have to use AI humans because we can't afford to do more robots, and it's just like, oh god, which this don't sound like they're doing a story from the book, but
Because they're not.
all right, I can't, I thought can't deal with you. I can't deal with you right now. Getting on my nerves. Then
You know they're not doing the story from the book, and you know why. I won't go into it again. But this one, what I thought they did well, they got the character. There's no way you could have walked away from the film, and if I asked you who's the heart of the team, you couldn't answer. Who's the leader of the team? Couldn't answer. Who's the coolest member of the team? Couldn't answer. So they got those
Elena,
things. Huh?
Elena, it's her movie
For which one of those things?
for the Thunderbolts, all of them.
All three?
I'll
No
give
way.
all it to Elena.
No
That's the only
way.
person I was really sticking in there for.
Whose character was the
They
Winter
didn't do
Soldier?
anything with my character Ghost. They did nothing with her.
Who cares about Ghost?
I
Ghost was
do.
actually that, a ghost.
Oh,
They
shut
wasted time
up.
with Taskmaster. For all of that, she didn't need to be in the movie.
She definitely didn't.
If you were going to do all of that with her, but Olga Kurylenko, she's a team player. But you got those particular things. You got those things established. I already told somebody before. You can tell with some of these characters that they are keeping them. These guys are going to be around. And so with that, you have the potential to have what you have with the first round of Marvel movies, because most of those characters nobody knew. Nobody didn't really knew Captain America, Iron Man was definitely someone who the general public didn't really know, but you got the opportunity to bring them in. Okay, maybe the stories aren't stellar, but at the very least, initially you can get the characterization right, and then people actually warm up to them. They want to see more of these characters, and then they recognize them in future films. They become familiar, and at the very least, you're doing that right. And then maybe, just maybe, you'll say, "Hey, here's a good storyline that we can actually work with, and we don't have to try to make something from whole cloth, which we suck at."
Well, that's you said a mouthful. But that's the thing, to get to to get to the end and it basically be the same as the New Mutants, where it's like, we have to deal with this enemy, but we can deal with it together due to the correlation of the relationship. I just wanted, I don't know. I just think, and you already pointed out, without pointing out, there's no real villain. The character in the team was the villain, so they can't tell the world that Century doesn't have is actually a thing that could destroy New York. So, and we created it. We also created this character. So, but yeah, at the same time, I'm not really a fan of Century at all. So it's kind of tough having him in there. And
How
yeah.
could you not like the Sentry? Look at the potential of this character. This is a character that you can't use. How could you not like him?
Yeah, yeah,
He said it at the end of the movie. You know me. If I use my powers, you know what's going to happen. So why is this guy here?
yeah. This is this did not go the way I had planned it to go. And it sucks that this thing is just yeah, to
Look at the catch-22 that you're in when it comes to the Sentry. If you use the Sentry, this guy's like Superman. You don't need anybody else. Okay, so you can't use him. But then, well, why is this guy here?
okay, I'm gonna one up you on this one, man. The You saying he's like Superman. Now we have Captain Continuity, Kurt Busiek, who did Avengers, JLA Avengers, right? So we had a Superman that was stronger than Thor. And Thor is the strongest guy in the Marvel universe, and Superman was stronger than him. The Sentry is stronger than freaking God. The Sentry makes mincemeat out of everybody. So
In the
Marvel,
Marvel universe, yes.
if Marvel turned their Superman into someone that not only has power or can get to that power, he utilizes it like he can manhandle Heralds of Galactus with no manhandle, not no competition, like literally no competition.
Well, he what is it? He literally turned Ares inside out.
Oh God. So that's the thing. So what's your sentiment of the character, them utilizing it, and but was he on that Thunderbolt team, or was he was on the New Avengers, right? Or was he on both? Did
I don't know if he ever made it to the Thunderbolts. He was on the New Avengers team.
Okay. So I don't know. I think at the same time, Marvel has used this might be my last point, utilize the DC stuff with the Eternals. They utilized the Watchmen, but they decided that their Ozymandias was Superman, and they said it as many times as that you could get to it, and that was a terrible fail. And then now we have another Superman thing, and he's a Superman you can't use, as you said, or else even now the other character will come out. So you can beat up everybody, but he can't do anything right now, so he has to stay normal and just hang out. So they just have to watch him. So um I don't know what's next, but
But
it's
they're gonna have to use him. They're gonna have to try to find some bypass where, okay, we can actually get this guy onto the screen and we can use him. And then because he's that powerful, they're gonna have to job him some way. So, that's gonna be fun to see what they're gonna do with him in the future. But they like this particular character. They like having a Superman analog around. They're gonna keep him around. But you can already see the difficulty with using the character.
and I guess we have to talk about it. The end credit scene.
Okay, what are we gonna talk about?
Fantastic Four ship
No,
coming.
we don't have to talk about that.
Why not?
We don't want to talk about that
Why don't we want to talk about that?
because we both like the Fantastic Four. What are we going to gain from that? Didn't your heart plummet when you saw that? Okay, you're like, oh, all right. At the very least, I'm holding out hope against hope that the Fantastic Four movie will be, and you're like, okay,
Dude,
all right. I see what they're gonna do right over here. I don't need to see this movie.
I can't. Yeah, there's such a spoiler for the FF, and the hard part is, I've already said to other people, I can't. I can't even accept failure, even if it's a failure. I need it to make money just because. I need the FF not to fail. I can't have them decide the FF doesn't work because Marvel doesn't know how to deal with them.
Sorry, Petey, not gonna happen.
Oh, I need it to be a billion.
Good luck,
I need it to be a billion. I will
and I
take
hope that marketing comes in.
I will take the billion. And if they make the billion, then people have to say the FF work. If
Do
it
you need the
fails,
billion right away, or if is it okay if the billion comes like 4 years later after all things are tallied
I'll,
up?
I'll do no, I need it in the theaters, not from streaming. I need them to make some money so we can, not to say they'll ever fix it, that people will stop saying that these guys don't work. And we have okay looking thing, but the same thing, yes, your sentiment is correct to be serious and to end here. To have that end credit scene, leaving no surprises to what happens, it's a really sad thing unless somehow they win and then decide, you guys, you got your world back. We are doing our stuff somewhere else.
These if these guys are in our world, there's a very good chance they failed theirs.
They are Gregory Hines and who's the other actor? Damn, that comedian. They're running scared, man.
Billy Crystal.
Yeah, Billy Crystal. They are running
I
scared.
don't do that. That was actually a good movie.
Can't you see? I'm right over. You are my
If we're
friend.
seeing them in our universe, there's a very good chance. There's a very good chance they failed their universe, and then it also brings up a question about Galactus because we're like, okay, is Galactus some inter-universal, multi-universal threat, or did they actually bring Galactus over with them? Meaning that they're going to be responsible, as they love to do with all the Marvel heroes. They are the problem. They're the reason why all this bad stuff is happening.
Yeah, that's a very bigger thing to say that we are not doing we're not having the FF, we can deal with the story of because you don't have to do the ultimate nullifier, but say that Galactus turns away from Earth because we had this moment saying they deserve a chance, right? It's a very high end thing. So yeah, it's a high end concept to get. So I understand that it'd be a harder thing for the audiences to get, or Marvel to say, well, what is this? Or it could be a thing where since we're showing it in the Avengers, is that we get everybody on the planet to fight Galactus now. I said, don't worry, Reed. I'm sorry. Don't worry, Sue, because she'll be taking the lead. Don't worry, Sue. We got it for you. And we pulled that old Captain America. We're gonna do the Alex Ross old Captain America, but he's not bald. What's his name is not going bald for this. And he's not gonna just be walking around in the American flag. But it was a very sad thing to see that the FM got their tails kicked.
Oh,
And
what? You're not gonna go further with that? I thought you would like really play up the Sue conceit. Like, hey, for all we know, Sue beat everybody threw Ben, Johnny, and Reed on the ship and said, "Get out."
you guys were useless.
Or maybe Sue is the sole survivor of that universe.
Oh,
And
you
she's
shut
the
up.
Fantastic Four.
You
She's
shut
so
up.
good. She's four.
All right. As much as I like Vanessa Kirby, um, to go for to go for broke. If this was my Sue, which is kind of like the 21 to 25-year-old Elizabeth Shue, yes. Sorry, Vanessa Kirby. No, I'm not accepting that one coming back to the if it's live action Elizabeth Shue as Sue, yeah, all right, she made it out. I would accept that, but not Vanessa Kirby. As much as I like her, I'm sorry that I have to rule on the Fantastic Four making it out. But to have their first movie, the first big loss, hey, this is different. This is different. No, this is leading to a bigger Galactus fight in the Avengers. I mean, the FF is just a side movie, the side piece. This, I can't. That's it. I'm done. Anything else you got to say?
Well, for all lovers of the Fantastic Four, we feel your pain. We'll be watching the movie too, but yeah, you got to really hope for this marketing.
Everybody get out and see the FF. We can't support it, but we can't tear it down. Please go and see it.
Oh, we can do both.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Spinner rack
We're out.
out.